Deep within the Russian Ural Mountains, in 1959, Igor Dyatlov led a group of seasoned hikers on an exhilarating journey to Mount Otordin. They had no idea that their experience would take a frightening turn. It all begins like any other journey. The group laughs and enjoys their time together while taking beautiful footage of the magnificent landscape. But as night arrives, an unsettling atmosphere settles over their campfire. It was icy outside, and the winds tore the trees apart. The hikers nestled close together in their tents to get a lovely night's sleep. Nature, however, has something even more evil planned for them. The group starts to realize something is seriously wrong as daylight comes. Their tents appear to have been pulled apart by frantic hikers. They see footsteps leading into the pitch-black, frozen wilderness, and panic sets in. The hikers continue on in quest of safety, abandoning their cozy shelter. However, each step they take drags them farther into a nightmare. Rescue teams find the first indications of the failed mission weeks later. Some of the hikers' bodies had been discovered in the snowy landscape. Their wounds are puzzling, as if they were the victims of an unfathomable force. The rescue teams first noticed that the camp was torn from the inside, like someone used a sharp object to cut out a route for escape. Footprints of barefoot people walking away from tents showed someone going out in the icy temperature. The dead body of one of the hikers, Doroshenko, was found in an unusual state, an unusually brown-purple complexion that terrified everybody who saw his motionless appearance. A horrifying gray liquid and froth flowed from his mouth and cheek. Bodies of two hikers were discovered with their hands ripped away, looking as though they had frantically clawed at something beneath the protective embrace of a cedar tree. The branches above them were torn down, like an evil force had pursued them into the treetop haven. The dead body of Slobodin had head wounds that fit someone falling and repeatedly hitting his skull. Kolmogorova, one of the hikers, had an oddly baton-shaped bruise on her side. Broken bones, internal wounds, and one hiker's tongue was completely missing. Some of the hikers' clothes were missing. The horror grows worse as the detectives search for a cause. What kind of accident can cause such wounds to exist? Theories start to circulate. Some think an avalanche brought on the hikers' fatalities. In contrast, others believed a botched military experiment was to blame. But neither hypothesis accounts for all the perplexing jigsaw pieces in this terrifying picture. The dead bodies of remaining hikers were found 75 meters away from the cedar tree and told even more gruesome stories. Nikolai Tabo-Brignolis, 23, had skull damage before his death. Lyudmila Dubinina, 20, and Simeon Solotarov, 38, had significant chest damage. However, the most confusing of all was the radiations found on the clothes of both Kolevatov and Dubinina. This is where it gets even stranger. The hikers' clothing had a lot of radioactivity on it. Radiation far away in the Ural Mountains? What might this imply? What could lead to this? We are left with more questions than answers as the mystery deepens. Did the hikers fall victim to an unidentified weapon? Or was there something darker waiting in the shadows? The second group of hikers had a different time of death than the first one found near the cedar tree. They have various injuries from each other, like they face different kinds of horrors. The government closed the investigation without giving any reasonable answers to their deaths, making this case a mystery in history and spiking more curiosity about why they closed it. It seems like they were trying to hide something, or nature was to blame for their deaths. The Dyatlov Pass Incident is still a mystery that lingers in our memories. The whole extent of the truth might never be discovered, leaving us to speculate about what became of those daring explorers who peered deep into the Ural Mountains. There's something about being a park ranger that has always brought me peace. My name is Adam, and I've watched over the Lone Pine Reservation in California for years. The whispering pines, the distant calls of birds, and the feel of the earth beneath my boots became my life. But then, strange things started happening. One morning, I stumbled upon a gruesome scene. A deer, its body mutilated and arranged in an almost ritualistic pattern. A knot formed in my stomach. Days later, another surprise awaited me. Deep inside the woods, I found tracks larger than ever. They were bizarre, not fitting any known animal. I tried to identify them, scouring the internet, but I found nothing that matched. Adding to the mystery, locals began sharing stories, whispering about a monstrous, wolf-like creature with red glowing eyes haunting our woods at night. This was a close-knit community, prone to superstition, I thought. It was easy for stories to grow taller, especially in the cover of the dark woods. Being a man of logic, I tried to find a rational explanation for these occurrences. They could account for the killings and the large tracks. As for the glowing red eyes, it's known that animals can reflect light in a way that might appear eerie to the unprepared. The local stories, I believe, were simply exaggerations, a response to the unusual wildlife activity. One night, under a starlit sky, everything changed. It was a routine patrol. I was deep in the woods, the air thick with the scent of pine and the undercurrent of wild, natural life. The trees stood like sentinels, their branches swaying gently in the cool breeze, casting eerie shadows on the ground. A sense of unease prickled at the back of my mind, but I shrugged it off. Then I heard it, a low, guttural growl that seemed to vibrate through the stillness. It was a sound that didn't belong and made my blood run cold. I paused, flashlight sweeping across the wilderness, every instinct screaming at me to be on alert. I followed the growl, curiosity overpowering my fear. What I found defied logic. The clearing was bathed in moonlight, and a creature stood in the center. It towered over me, its form silhouetted against the moon's pale glow. It was on its hind legs, standing like a man, but its features were unmistakably lupin. Its eyes met mine, glowing an eerie red, and I felt a chill seep into my bones. It studied me, its gaze intelligent, almost human. My heart pounded in my chest, every fiber of my being screaming that it was wrong, that such a creature could not exist. But it was right there in front of me. Then it did something even more bizarre. It spoke. My words, my voice echoed back at me, a grotesque mimicry from the throat of this monster. My blood ran cold, a fear gripping me like I'd never done. Then, before my eyes, it shifted form, rapidly becoming a different animal. It was as if the laws of nature had folded in on themselves. I stood rooted in place, my mind struggling to process what I witnessed. Fear, raw and primal, took hold of me. I turned and ran. The woods that had once been my refuge now felt alien, hostile. The creature gave chase. Its growls and the thunderous sound of its heavy footfalls echoed through the quiet woods, turning my tranquil sanctuary into a nightmare. In a panic, I ran, branches whipping against me, my breath coming in ragged gasps. The lights of my parked vehicle offered a glimmer of hope. With a final burst of adrenaline, I reached it. The roar of the engine seemed to drown out the night as I tore out of the woods, leaving the creature behind. The drive back was a blur, the adrenaline slowly ebbing away, replaced by a cold dread. I glanced at the rearview mirror, half expecting those glowing red eyes behind me. But there was nothing. As the safety of my cabin came into view, I realized that my perception of the Lone Pine Reservation had changed irrevocably.